Trenton 365 with Jacque Howard. Profiling the businesses, organizations, and people that make Trenton better.
Hello, friend, and welcome to the Trenton 365 show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You're listening over WIMG 1300. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well, WIMG 1300, and the website, WIMG1300.com. The Trenton 365 show has a Facebook page. You can also follow it over Twitter at Trenton 365. And if you'd like to send me an email, it's Trenton365show@gmail.com. And then we can get together and we can have some food and drinks and talk about how we can build a better community together. So in the studio with me is Ayana Iman, who is an amazing young lady who's doing some awesome things in this region. And when I say this region, I mean New York to Philadelphia. And she's got something that's coming up this weekend, Authentic Convos. And we're going to be talking in detail about that, but more about who she is as a person, because it's very important that you get to know who she is. So, Ayana, welcome to the Trenton 365 show.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Great.
So why don't we get started and talk a little bit about who you are, and then we can get right into talking about your brand, and we can get into talking about your event.
Okay, perfect. So I was born and raised in Trenton, New Jersey. Grew up in the North Side. I went to King University undergrad. I just finished my master's program at Rutgers back in May, so I'm very happy about that. Education is very important to me. I am 25, a single mother to one, 3 years old, sweet baby Ayo. That's her hashtag. I'm really big on hashtags. And I needed to do that so that I could keep all our photos together. Other than that, love to travel, world traveler. Just went to South Africa this year. It was beautiful. And I'm a life coach. So I'm a life coach, I'm a professional speaker, and I'm the creator of Authentic Convos.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So let's get right into talking about the misconceptions of Trenton.
Okay.
You were saying just before we came on the air, you were talking about, hey, I'm born and raised in Trenton, and then you went into to talk a little bit about your education as well and how important that is. Just talk about the misconceptions about Trenton.
Okay, so I'm from Trenton, like I'm from deep Trenton. I'm from Martin Luther King Boulevard, born and raised. I went to all Trenton public schools. So all I know is Trenton in that sense of my foundation. And I'm grateful for it because it taught me life skills. It taught me common sense. It taught me to work hard. And I think that the biggest misconception about Trenton is that Trenton is dead. There's so many people that are thriving here in the arts community, that are thriving here in just philanthropic communities all over. And we're also very global people. And so it's such a beautiful thing. I actually saw my cousin who's from Trenton in South Africa, who's becoming a doctor. And we hadn't seen each other here, but we saw each other there. So it's important for me to showcase the dynamics of what Trenton is, the power that we hold, and just letting people know that although the statistics or what the news may show is violence and crime, my friends and the people that I hang around are all abundant in many ways. We're wealthy in many ways. We're all educated, all well-traveled, and we're really about the community and coming together and promoting ourselves and each other and just building love.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you put that because, again, part of the misconception is that people oftentimes people like to put other people in boxes for either their own benefit or because they think that they're doing it for the benefit of someone else. And I love that you're smashing that misconception. What made you want to become a life coach in addition to your education and the other things that you've been doing?
Well, through a lot of decisions that I made as a woman, as a young woman, I made a lot of missteps, whether it was in relationships, decisions that I've made. And so I actually had to work through them. So at 23, I went to counseling. I was leaving a bad relationship. I was a single mom. And I was just in a place where I needed to build myself back up. Mm-hmm. And so in the Black community, especially, some of us don't think that going to therapy is needed. We think that Jesus will take care of it. And that's great. I'm very spiritual. I grew up Christian. I'm really in a spiritual space at the moment. However, you sometimes need to go to these professionals to talk about your problems, to clear any cobwebs, and to help you break cycles. So I went to counseling at 23, and I said, I want to break this cycle of choosing the wrong men because it affected me. And so I sat there, and I think we did maybe 4 or 5 weeks sessions. And through those sessions, I was able to get into grad school. I was able to leave that relationship. I was able to find myself and just flourish in other areas of my life. And so because of that, I went to England last year with my daughter. And I was still in grad school, but I really just needed to get away. My father's from England, and I decided to kind of go see him, take my daughter, and just kind of be in a new space. And even though I was in a new relationship, I needed to know that I was strong. And so because of that, I started sharing my story online, first Instagram and then across all platforms. And I built a tribe, a digital tribe. And I just shared with women the power of our thoughts, the power of the space, about raising your vibrations when you go on new locations, being able to be codependent, but be independent in yourselves and your thoughts, being able to self-love. And I came back with a new lease on life. I came back and I got myself focused. I got my own place and I got a new car, and I just put my thoughts into action, and it manifested something beautiful. I was able to create Authentic Convos, and because of that, I realized that I really had the space to help others. So through blog posts, I did it first, and I decided to take a step further, become a life coach. I did it in May, literally graduated Thursday, and was in my life coaching certs that Friday for like 3 days, 8 hours a day, with continuous education. So I literally had 2 graduations, and it was a very long weekend. There was no celebration. It was just back to back. And I did it, and I'm actually launching my practice in January.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Ayana, what's the best way for people to find out about what you're doing and if they want to connect with you?
Across all platforms, social media, and my website, it's Ayana Iman. So it's AYANAIMAN.com, or on any social platform.
That's fantastic. You know, I'm excited for you. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things about your digital tribe, and that you were creating a platform where you could have conversations with women specifically. But I want to wave my hand and tell you that I was immediately drawn to what you were doing for several reasons. Not only your presentation, but the fact that you're from Trenton. I know your mother, but in addition to that, that you're focusing on an element and you're putting a lot of information out that I think that the people of color have a tendency to always want to hide behind this or be in the shadows with, like with the mental health issue in seeking counseling. What led you to do that? I mean, because that's, as a young person, taking those steps to do that is sometimes a little difficult, I'm sure.
Well, I actually went to relationship counseling, but I was the only one on the couch. And so I went there to try, you have this little family, you're a young person, but you understand the concept of family. You understand togetherness, and that if we work through these issues, we can give our child a better life and stability. And so foundations were so important for me. And even with all the craziness and chaos in my relationship, I still wanted to give our child a 2-parent home. So for me, I felt like if we went to counseling and we did the work, we could fix and mend any of the bad communication or anything that was broken. So I went to counseling. I was the only one on the couch, and I remained the only one on the couch. And that was enough for me to kind of catapult where I was to where I am now. It also was something I needed to do because I realized I was the common denominator in all my relationships. And so I'm like, well, I'm doing something wrong. I'm choosing the wrong people, and I might not be in a space where I need to be in a relationship. Mother or not, sometimes you have to choose you. And so I ended up choosing me and myself, and I ended up choosing my daughter, and to focus on us. And it worked out perfectly.
Now, I was taking a note there, and I always like to find similarities in my life, in the lives of others. And taking this step to seek counseling, to me, is extremely important. I wish more people would do that. If that counseling means going for an extended amount of time, if you need to have medication, then to go in that, to progress in that direction. But breaking the chains of bondage or mending fences with relationships that you didn't have or that you missed, how has that worked in your life? And I'm speaking specifically from me and my generation. I didn't have a strong relationship with my father. He was there, but he was like not there. You know what I mean? Like he was very busy with working and being a provider, but not necessarily being that father who is teaching me life lessons about how to be a man and what it means to be involved in a relationship and to be active in lots of different things socially. So I'm hearing from you that you've taken a lot of those similar steps that I have, but it sounds as though that you've done that on your own to some extent. And from a female's perspective, I'd like to know what your thought is.
Yeah, well, nobody told me to go to counseling, especially not at that young age. But having a daughter, it kind of matures you. And I kind of saw what was wrong. And I mean, you speaking about your father and your relationships with your parents, same thing with me. My parents are very loving people. I grew up in a very loving household with two parents while I was a child. But I think about the age of 10 or 9, I'm not sure the exact age, my dad was no longer in the house. So I grew up in a predominantly single parent home. Although my father was loving and I knew who he was, we didn't live in the same country. So it was phone calls and FaceTime calls. And that's how I saw my dad. But I also studied abroad there to build a better relationship that was physical and not just over the phone. As far as my mother, she's always instilled in me the power of self and making clear and definite decisions for empowerment. So just learning that and understanding that no matter what my family dynamic looked like, all that mattered was love. So even though I was choosing to leave a bad relationship, all that mattered was love when it came to me and my child. She was not going to lack anything. And so when I understood that, I was able to take those steps. I was able to do the work. I was able to sit on a stranger's couch and tell him my innermost thoughts and just learn about myself. So hearing actually everything that I had gone through, it was almost like, why were you sitting there? Why'd you go through that? And I think that's all I really needed to do was say it out loud to someone that wasn't biased, and for him to just ask me the question, why do you stay, or why do you continue this? And then I realized that it had nothing to really do with the other party. It was about my actions of being there, my actions of staying, or my actions of coddling, and what I did. So I had to actually put the onus on me and take back the control.
And kudos to you for doing that, and also to sharing that. Why feel the need to share this with a larger group of people and open up your life and your life experiences to others? Why?
I'm a storyteller. I love fictional books, but at the end of the day, I like to tell stories, true stories. I like to tell stories about my life. I like to tell stories through photos. If I'm somewhere and I see something beautiful, I like to share it. I'm all about gratitude. So I read a lot of books on gratitude and about, especially with The Alchemist, the personal legend. So me going to England was my personal legend. For 2 months, I was gone with my daughter, and we did a bit of traveling. And it wasn't costly in the fact that I was everywhere. I was in a family's home, but I was able to kind of go out, smell fresh air, and it was something that I needed to do to remember that I wasn't dead, that I still had so much life to live. And that's what I needed at that moment, because my inner thoughts were grim. It didn't feel like I was progressive in any way, or that the life that I painted for myself at 18, I wasn't there at 22 and 23. And so I tell stories to help uplift others. I tell stories to help them cultivate a life of abundance. I tell stories because I understand that even if I reach one person, I did my job. And I also understand that God instills in you a purpose. And my purpose, as it's been unfolding over the last year, is to inspire others. And that's one of my first affirmations I put on my wall. Actually, the first one was I am love. And then after that, it was I inspire others. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no platform. I didn't talk to anybody. But this is actually a confidence building project for me. Never really been quite talkative, always been about, into myself, insular, but I've also done things behind closed doors where I'm always two different people, the out person that's behind closed door and the person that you see in public. And this is me actually being the most transparent I've ever been in my life.
You touched on something that I wanted to ask you about, and it was your level of confidence. I mean, you're one of those people, in my opinion, when you walk into a space, regardless of how large it is, you own that space and you demand something, and it's an aura. And I think that that's something that needs to be nurtured, and it's obvious that it's something that you probably had at a young age, but it's coming out more and more now, I would say. Just speak about the confidence that you have.
That's true. I remember a professor of mine, I wrote something. It was my senior year, and I remember because when I came back from England the first time, I went to study abroad. I left another broken relationship. I was young. I was very young. But when I came back stronger and more confident. So my first 3 years of college, I was quiet. I was a shadow. I was a shadow of myself. I wasn't who I really was. And I was hiding behind Ugg boots and sweatpants. And then I came back and I owned my power. And my professor described me as dynamic. And I realized that a lot of people in the room weren't feeling me because he was always expressing his opinions towards me. And that was one of the words he used, dynamic. And it became one of my favorite words because it was just like, wow, I'm always striving, always pushing. You walk into the room and what you own. And so it was something I wasn't comfortable with at all. I wasn't comfortable with it going into my first job. I wasn't comfortable with it walking into a space. But it's something that the older I get, the more I own my power. And it's in different forms, whether it's through making money, whether it's through networking. But I've come to appreciate who I am, the woman I am, to own being feminine, to own being beautiful, to own being smart, to own my stories, to own my truths. And as a result of that, I'm able to walk into the room with the strength of my ancestors, as Oprah says. And I'm able to walk into the room and know exactly why I'm there. I'm able to be quiet and still attract people towards me. It's a confidence builder. My events, the things that I do, I'm never not afraid. Like sometimes I am scared, but I do it anyway. I've learned to jump. And if it's for me, it's for me. And I always understand that God has my back. And so if I work through faith, I'm always going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the balance of faith and owning your sexuality and who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And also owning the challenges that your life and everyone's life has. I often tell folks about my life and the peaks and the valleys of it. I mean, I'm in this transition now where I'm coming out of this very much a valley situation, but I've learned to own that space and that time and the relationships that are here. And I'm looking forward to the progression so that those experiences will help to elevate me when I'm at that mountaintop experience.
Of course.
So what about for you?
For me, I mean, just to talk about spirituality, grew up Christian. Although a lot of what I do still has that foundational practices, I'm a spiritual person. I don't like to abide by certain religions just because when you are a global citizen, you realize there's so much beauty and love across the spectrum of religions and people and color. However, I do own being a powerful Black woman. Mm-hmm. I'm always going to own that. But when it comes to things of sexuality, I think it's just owning who you are. As a young girl, when you grow into womanhood, your body starts to fill out. You start to look different. You start to attract different people. Again, that confidence has taught me that it's okay to own who I am. It's okay to be beautiful and own it. It's a part of self-love. It's okay to pour into yourself. And it's okay to say that you're attracted to men. It's okay to say that you have a sexual appetite. It's okay because you're human. If you can't own all of that, you're not being authentic to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned authentic. We're going to get into talking about authentic convos in a bit, but I want to make sure that the listening and viewing audience really gets a nice overall perspective of who you are and the wonderful things that you're doing. And earlier this week, as I was, or last week, as I was trying to promote this a little bit, you've touched on so many of the things that I've had questions that I wanted to mention to you, like strong Black woman. What does that actually mean to you, and what would you like to share with the audience for the folks who may consider that to be something standoffish or off-putting, or they're just ignorant to what you actually mean?
Of course. So I think strong Black woman sometimes gets typecast as angry Black woman. And I always tell people this. I always say that just because I have opinions, but I'm not angry. But that doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to be angry. I'm a firm believer that your emotions are your emotions. Mm-hmm. If I'm angry, I'm angry. If I'm upset, I'm upset. I'm very clear on that. However, I understand I don't have to remain in that space. And that's the biggest thing that people forget, that emotions are valid. And I think we try to dehumanize the person when they have these feelings. If I'm upset, allow me to be upset. But I don't have to carry that until the next day. And if I do, I'll do it. But that's not the way I live my life, because I understand your emotions color your physical self, and I don't want to carry that kind of stress. I don't need high blood pressure. That's just me. But as far as being a strong Black woman, I'm in a lot of spaces that aren't around people of color. And when you go there, you don't have to dim your light or dim your blackness to be with them. You're able to be self-accepting and accepting of other people. I have many friends from other cultures, and I respect them. And I don't hate anyone. I just embrace myself. And the person that I am is a black woman from the hood, but I'm also a black woman who's educated, and a black woman who's well-traveled, and a black woman that's been in all type of spaces, all type of people from different wealth backgrounds and different upbringings, including black people. There are all types of black people, so it's a typecast. And so it's just me owning my space, and I can only be who I am, and that is a strong black woman. And that's who I am at the end of the day, when I wake up, when I go to sleep. But no, I'm not angry. Not at this moment.
And if you are, that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Exactly.
I'll be upset, and I'm open about that. But I also tell people, don't remain in that space, because you can't grow there. Nothing can be solved by anger or hate. It always has to be resolved back to love.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask you, or at least invite you back again, because there's so much on my laundry list of things that I'd like to ask you, and I know that this time won't be enough. So I'd like to invite you back again very soon to talk about some of the things. But I'd like for you to drill down a bit more on beauty. My background's in fashion, as you know. So beauty, the beauty standards, and where you feel you fit into this, and where do you see it evolving as a culture, fashion in general? And let me bring that back. So for a long time, the standards of what is considered, with my air quotes, beautiful is changing. And I'm glad it's changing. It's evolving. It's being much more inclusive. I think that it's a better representation of who the population of the world, of the globe, the planet is. And I think that's important, especially as younger generations come along. And I think that there's been, in some cases, unfixable harm to a lot of people who have felt cast off because they didn't look a certain way. Their body wasn't a certain type, or their skin color wasn't what was considered to be popular at that time. So anyone who's interested in fashion and in style and quote-unquote beauty scene, I like to ask their opinions about where they feel the industry is going and the whole cultural movement.
Okay, I guess for me personally, I didn't grow up thinking I was beautiful. I grew up with dreadlocks, and that was in the 90s, and it wasn't really a hit here. Relaxers were. I never got to wear bobos and any of those kind of things because I grew up with dreadlocks. I think I had them at around 5 to 17. So when you grow up like that, you're automatically typecast again as the girl with dreads or the light-skinned girl with dreads. And it's just different names and different situations, especially being going to schools where it's a bit closed-minded, especially in urban areas, and it wasn't a style yet. So I didn't grow up thinking I was beautiful, and I was always the heavier girl. So you have dreadlocks, nobody can identify with them. They don't think you wash your hair, and then you're the heavier girl. So I'm automatically awkward. And I grow up, I don't feel comfortable, and then some of the weight starts to shed, and then dreadlocks are now a style and more accepted. So now I'm more accepted as one of the beauty standards. That's something that I had to grow into because, again, I was that awkward girl who was quiet, who didn't really fit in with the spaces that even I grew up in. Mm-hmm. I didn't fit in with the people I went to school with. And so then years later, you have a child, and you're more confident, you're more womanly, you're more you. You stepped into the role of who you were supposed to be, your innate self. And and because of that, everything glows. From the outfits you put on to your hair to your makeup to everything, and it's just owning your 360 self. And I'm accepted because I accept myself. So at the end of the day, I don't really care about people's standards. I accept me, so I'm fine with that. But as far as people's beauty standards, especially in the Black community, it's always been a dark skin, light skin thing, and now curvy is accepted. I understand that I've always been of lighter skin, so that was a privilege, even when I didn't know it was, even when I felt like the ugly duckling with dreadlocks that was heavier, it was still something that I had over people that I didn't understand. And so now I've never been about color. I don't care what it is. If we're black, we're black. Our blood all runs red.
That's right.
And it is what it is. I think as long as you accept yourself, the world we live in today, we're all about transparency and being inclusive, as you mentioned before. So I think as long as you love yourself, you will always receive love back. And that's what people are looking for. People are looking for those kind of stories. I know women that are 400 pounds and they have thousands of followers and a huge platform because they promote self-love. Mm-hmm. If you can stand by your words and own your power and own who you are, the world will love you back. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the standard of beauty and where we're at now.
That's great. I'd like to ask you, Black America, mm-hmm. and let the rabbit out of the hat a bit, or out of the bag, should I say. With what has taken place in the last several years, with law enforcement and the murders and deaths and all these different things, and where we are as a country politically, having conversations with people, childhood friends, and people I've known for decades who are not people of color, and I feel there's this need to explain what Black America is, and that I'm Black America, you're Black America. And I want you to share what your thoughts are about Black America, but then I want you to transition it and talk about your experience outside of the country in being a person of color.
Okay. Well, I actually just had like an Authentic Convos kind of talk in South Carolina, Rock Hill, South Carolina, and I was the moderator for a panel discussion on Black Lives Matter. And it was pivotal because it was my first speaking gig out of the state, and it was far away. So mm-hmm. that was exciting. But there, it kind of showed me even the division between the North and the South. So I only know what it is for me to be a Black person in America in the Northeast. And then my experience in the Northeast has just been, especially I remember when I was younger, there were a lot of gangs, there was a lot of gang violence, and I remember police, the SWAT team on my porch and like pinning down my uncle, and I remember them going through the alleyways, and it was just like this crazy summer, and them just thinking that we were all thugs, but we were really outside playing. And so me having this notion that I have to protect myself from cops, and I need to make sure that I use my proper voice when I speak to them. Mm-hmm. And it's instilled into us as young children, and it's a shame because that's fear. But being Black in America, it's different for women and it's different for men. I mean, women have been killed as well at the hands of men and at the hands of cops. It's unfortunate across the boards, but I think that they see us as animals at times. Some people, I don't want to say all, because I have family members that are cops who are Black. But some of us see us as these violent criminals or these angry people because that's the kind of stigma we have against us. But really we're not. Sometimes we're misunderstood. Sometimes we're just picking up our children and waiting in a car, as some of the men who have lost their lives are doing this year alone. But like I said, the people in my tribe that I know, and it's not that I have just these one, monotone kind of people. I have people who are colored so differently in their education and everything. And we collectively come together from these different spaces. And my Black America is beauty. It's acceptance, it's love, it's us talking, it's us hugging. We never greet each other without a hug. But in any space and in any culture, you have radicals, you have people who are wayward, and it is what it is. And I send them love, and I hope that one day we can all change things. But at the end of the day, we can only deal with the now. And in the now, I can only deal with myself and speak on the injustices when I see them. And what was the second question?
No, I think that's perfect to end up. We're just about up on a break. Can you share your contact information, Ayana?
My contact information is Ayana Iman across all boards, AYANA-IMAN.
Fantastic. You're listening to the Trenton 365 show. I'm speaking with Ayana Iman, who's going to be talking about Authentic Convos, which is a series of talks and conversations that she is hosting, moderating, and participating in that are taking place in several different locations. We've got a big one coming up here at the Grounds for Sculpture in Hamilton Township on Saturday, November 5th.
Yes.
5th. We'll talk more after the break. You're listening and watching the Trenton 365 show, and I'm your host, Jacque Howard.
Due to an upturn in the economy, Main Street Business Loans has pre-approved the release of millions of dollars in small business funding. Your business may already be pre-approved to receive up to $250,000. We've sent out millions of pre-approval letters. We see the economy growing, and our underwriters believe now is the time to invest in your business so you can grow faster and make more money. And we're prepared to give you up to $250,000 to do it. Your funds can be available in 5 days. There are no application fees, no annual fees, just quick access to up to $250,000. If your business did not receive your approval letter to get up to $250,000, call Main Street Business Loans Approval Desk now.
800-509-2163, 800-509-2163, 800-509-2163, 800-509-2163.
Need a truck to move? Let Justin's Rental of Selman's Eagle save the day. Justin's has the right trucks for all commercial and residential moves. Justin's has the moving supplies and boxes available. Justin's Rental at Selman's Eagle has everything you need for your move at affordable prices, featuring the best in pickup trucks, 10 and 15-foot box trucks, and vans. Justin's Rental at Selman's Eagle is located at 2596 South Broad Street, across from the McDonald's in Hamilton. For all your rental truck needs, call 609-888-3327. That's 609-888-3327. Justin's Rental at Selman's Eagle. If you are moving, we have the trucks to meet your moving needs.
Have you ever needed help and not known where to find it? For more than a century, Catholic Charities Diocese of Trenton has been offering assistance to people of all faiths in central New Jersey. We envision a world where all people reach their full potential, achieve self-sufficiency, and live in a just, compassionate society. Our services include help with rent or utilities payments, financial counseling, family and individual counseling, substance abuse treatment, and domestic abuse prevention and treatment. For more information about our broad array of services, please visit us at www.catholiccharitiestrentton.org or call us at 1-800-642-0218. Many of our services are offered free or are based on ability to pay. This message is from Catholic Charities, renewing lives and restoring hope for more than a century.
And welcome back to the Trenton 365 Show. I'm your host, Jacque Howard. You can send me an email, trenton365show@gmail.com, website, trenton365.com, Facebook page, Trenton 365 Show. In the studio with me is Ayana Iman, and she is the creator of Authentic Convos. And just before the break, we've been talking about her background, her history, and how she's gotten to this point in her young life of 25 years old. She has achieved a lot of different things, and we're going to rehash some of those and then get into talking about her event that's coming up, Authentic Convos. So, Ayana, you've been talking a bit about your history,
Yes.
about you growing up in Trenton, that you've got your bachelor's, your master's, you're world traveled, you're a single